But what was that doing internally to you by saying no to standing out and no to kind of some of your personal style elements?
I just moved so far away from my true self that what happened in this space was just this whole horrible burnout, depression, anxiety situation. We have this social avatar, so this persona that we put on, and we have our real authentic self. And obviously the goal to being authentic is you get those two things as close as you possibly can together, respecting your own boundaries, of course, but as close as you can together, so that you've got, less space for things like, anxiety, stress, all that good stuff to then creep in. And what I talked about in this talk was that I'd created so much of space between, the real me and then this social avatar that it just felt so alien.
Hey friends, welcome to Right Off Track, your favorite entrepreneurial resource where we dive into the mindset, strategy, and purpose of entrepreneurs around the world who are sharing their real stories and insights with you. I believe that we all have a unique purpose in life, and that embracing our unique and special journey will help uncover that. If this helps you on your journey, I so welcome your support as we grow and improve this channel. Join us, subscribe. I promise you, I'm fully dedicated to making this work better every step of the way. So share your feedback, subscribe, share with a friend, and let's go on this adventure together right off track. Enjoy this episode.
Going off track is taking a chance on yourself.
Following your pulse of curiosity.
It's making your own decisions.
The most wonderful adventure.
Hey friends, join me, Anya Smith, for an inspiring episode where we explore how bringing your full self to work can spark real change. We're diving into the world of HR with a guest who's a living example of this philosophy. She's turned the conventional on its head, using authenticity to empower others and address pressing workplace issues. With over 20 years under her belt, she's a beacon for those striving to make real impact in their professional lives. Let's warmly welcome Michelle Hartley. Michelle, so excited to have you here.
Hey, thank you for having me. I feel like that introduction was a whopper. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited. It's early on my time. It's about 6 a.m. over here in Pacific. And where in the world are you, just so our guests can know?
Yeah, so I'm in the UK. I'm in the southwest of the UK. So for me, it's almost 2 p.m., which is why I've had plenty of time to get ready. And you look more fabulous than me, even though it's between 5 and 6 a.m. for you. So impressive.
My gosh. You look. The reason I want to bring it up is that I knew this episode would be so energizing that I don't even need coffee. So I was really looking forward to starting my day exactly this way. So thank you for joining me. And quick shout out to Harrison Cantel, who introduced us.
Yes.
He's also a wonderful guest and a whiz at video production. If you want to check out his episode. But Michelle, we talked about you. What I was really fascinated when I met you is like how much energy and passion you have in this seemingly conservative field of HR. So can you share with me a little bit, like, how did you find your ability to be truly yourself in this seemingly conservative field?
Yeah, it's a really strange space, HR, isn't it? And I think so. I've been around in HR, as you said in my beautiful introduction, for 20 plus years. And so when I was in HR in-house, I felt like I always was an HR person with a bit of a personality. I'd always have a sense of humour. I'd always be able to join in with the stupid jokes and stuff like that. But I really only found my proper, authentic self when I started to run my business. So now I'll be 3 years old in a few weeks' time. And thank you very much. And so that's when it really started. So I had a period of burnout where I was just trying to be something that I wasn't. I kept trying to force myself into this like corporate mold, trying to be like one of the boys, and it just didn't land for me. And I think it took its toll. I've been there for a long time, and it took its toll on me, and it resulted in a horrible period of burnout. But actually, what that made me realize was if I can just be more me, I will have more energy and I'll probably enjoy my life a bit more. So that's where it all kind of started. So it almost became like a little bit of a spark. And then it kind of just exploded from there. And I think when we spoke before, I was saying about it randomly started with nail polish. So which just sounds like the strangest thing. But I was in this space where I'd like forced myself into like this super grey, navy, beige, just boring HR mold. And whenever anybody used to notice anything about my appearance, be that lipstick, jewelry, nail polish, I'd never wear it again. When I put it away, I'd never wear it again because I just didn't want to be noticed. I didn't think that was the right thing. And so after my period of burnout, I was like, I'm just going to start like little ways of trying to engage myself, get back to the real me. And I was genuinely petrified. I got to this space where I was just so scared of being me. So I started with nail polish and I went to my nail lady and I was like, we need to do something. Like, I need to do something different. It's got to be something cool. But I'm petrified. And so we ended up agreeing on, I'm not even kidding you, like a French manicure with like the tiniest bit of sparkle on the top. That's where it started. And then I realized that no one had died, like nobody hated me. I still had my professional status, but now I had slightly sparkly nails. So it worked really well. And then I just kept building on that experiment, then week on week on week, and suddenly became much more me. So yeah, it's been really interesting to live through it in the last couple of years.
So Michelle, before we continue, show us your nails.
So right now they're
Beautiful
bright red
white.
with like a gold sparkle on the ring finger.
Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Very holiday-esque because we're recording this like right in the middle of December. So very
Yes.
but on a serious note, why do you think we get to a place where we need to constantly, where we feel this need to not be ourselves in the corporate setting?
Yeah, it's so hard being in that corporate space, isn't it? I mean, I remember I got told by a mentor, oh, probably 15 years ago now, who said to me, like, you need to dress like your seniors dress. You need to dress in a way that really reflects the people that you want to be your peers. So if they're more senior than you and you want to be part of that group, you need to dress like them. And at first I thought, I'm not sure about that. That doesn't work for me. And then as I started to get more senior in my career, that's what was happening. So it was almost like, I used to love wearing like waistcoats and bright shoes. And then, of course, I got to the point where I was in a senior role and I was like, oh, none of these men are wearing waistcoats and bright shoes, so maybe I shouldn't. And it seemed to, I think that the messaging that I got around being a woman in a senior position was to not stand out, to, not detract from your credibility and professionalism and just, be beige like everybody else. And it really stuck with me and it just seemed to really affect me for such a long time. Whereas now I get work and I'm asked to deliver work at a very senior level in a very professional way, but with my kind of style, energy, joy, colour, all kind of involved. So it's a massive shift for me.
Absolutely. And I'm curious, so we talk about the external things, people are like, well, what's the difference? Sure, maybe you don't stand out, but what was that doing internally to you by saying no to standing out and no to kind of some of your personal style elements?
Yeah, it was, I think, to be honest, that's where the whole burnout situation ended up for me was I just moved so far away from my true self that what happened in this space was just this whole horrible burnout, depression, anxiety situation. And I was reading a piece recently, and I talked about it actually a couple of months ago at a talk I was doing, but about how we have this social avatar, so this persona that we put on, and we have our real authentic self. And obviously, the goal to being authentic is you get those two things as close as you possibly can together, respecting your own boundaries, of course, but as close as you can together so that you've got, less space for things like, anxiety, stress, all that good stuff to then creep in. And what I talked about in this talk was that I'd created so much of a space between the real me and then this social avatar that it just felt so alien, and the amount of energy that I was using to keep this space just was ridiculous. And I think that's where that burnout space kicked in for me, because I was just so far away from my normal self, and I would come back from a day at work and just be absolutely exhausted. Like, we were laughing the other day, me and my husband, but I would come home and he'd ask me a question like, what do you want for dinner? And I'd lose it. I'm like, don't ask me any more questions. Like, so I just had nothing left in the tank. So it's just the strangest thing. But yeah, I think I was just basically expending all of my energy in essentially maintaining two selves, and it just isn't healthy. We can all do it for a period of time, right? You go to a party with friends and you kind of put on the face and you're okay, but actually doing that for 12 hours a day every day of the week is just it's unsustainable, and I think that's where I got to with it.
I can totally relate. Yes, we can laugh at it now, but I'm sure in the moment, people going through it, it definitely feels a lot more serious and difficult. It reminds me, what's funny, when I started my career, I was actually, my first job out of college was working for Alaska Airlines, which is a local Seattle airline. It's within the US. I don't know if it's known across the world. In any case, that was a place where starting work, I had to dress in the most formal. And it was funny, right? Because
Hmm.
at that point, I'm like here out of college, I had my piercings, like my nose piercings, and my manager's like, you have to take all of this out, right? Like all of this stuff. So I was like, okay, sure, put it out. And what's funny is that after that, all my jobs were like higher tech, higher paying, and less formal. Like here,
Yeah.
like all my formal clothes like lays in my closet that I never reach out to unless like something random really happens. But it was like as I get to make more money, I get to dress a lot less conservatively. But
Yes.
the issue is still there. So if you're in tech and you're a place like, well, okay, I don't have to dress formally. This may not relate to me. But I found that still I was trying to be more like my manager. I was trying
Yeah.
to be like, oh, well, if something's not happening for me, professionally, maybe I'm not getting some opportunities, like, then something is wrong with me. Then I
Yeah.
need to be less energetic. I need to be quote unquote more professional. I need to tone myself down. And okay, what do people that are in leadership roles, what do they look like? So even if it's not a clothing element, it's still that vibration where we feel like, hey, we need to be more like somebody else to be XYZ in an environment. And I definitely found that that was messing with myself. And to your point, when you get outside of these artificial, settings, like corporate, you
Mm.
find like the limits are, they weren't there. They were kind of
Yeah.
artificial, like you were putting those into your head. Nobody was telling you, oh, you have to change. So I found that really powerful, and it does mess with your head, even if it's not clothes wise. The feeling that you can't be yourself does mess with your head. So now you were talking about, hey, you started with nail polish. What happened then? Like, what was your progression from starting to nail polish to then saying, hey, I'm going to truly find myself?
Yeah, it was really interesting. So the nail polish progressed and progressed and progressed, and I still realized that no one died and everything was okay. And then interestingly, lockdown hit. So we had this COVID situation where everybody was locked in their homes. And what happened was I was kind of forced to not wear my corporate tailored suits and my corporate outfits because I was like, why am I wearing suits when I'm sat in my kitchen? So then it became, right, I just need to find things that bring me joy now because this is a horrible time. It was genuinely the most stressful time of my entire career. And those that are listening that are HR people, I can literally feel them nodding along already. So
Mm-hmm,
it
mm-hmm.
was the most stressful, awful time. Um, and so I just found myself wanting joy. And what happened was I ended up finding loads of clothes that just brought me joy. And then weirdly, so it went from like nail polish to socks. And remember, I don't know if it's the same in the US actually, but in lockdown in the UK, we all just went mad for things that could come via the post because obviously you couldn't leave your house, you couldn't go to the shops. And so I found this sock website that did these really cute little socks, but in all like animal print colours, but bright, bright colours. And I spent probably about £45 on rainbow socks. And I remember thinking I have to hide them from my husband because he'll go mad if he's realised that I spent this much money on socks. But then it started. Then I was like, oh, I love these. They bring me joy when I put them on. Then I found a lovely company which doesn't exist anymore, but a lovely company that did rainbow coloured like sweaters. And so I had one of those. And then I got to the space where I was like, actually, I'm in my own house. I don't need to wear makeup. Like, I don't need to do any of this stuff. And so I just ended up, but at the beginning of lockdown, I was this like super stressed, super tailored, slightly nail polishy HR person in a very senior role. By the end of lockdown, I was in rainbow coloured tracksuits with rainbow animal print socks and my hair scrubbed up in a mum bun with no makeup on. But what my realization was is none of that changed my level of professionalism. None of that changed my credibility in the business. None of that changed how I did my job. Actually, what it meant was I had more energy to gift to my family when I'd finished this horrible, stressful day. So it was a weird lockdown, COVID based epiphany that then got me thinking about I don't know if I want another corporate job now. Maybe I want to do something for myself. So that's where it kind of all started. So yeah, nail polish to socks to sweaters to here.
I love it. Ooh, it all took over. And for all of us listening, I'm curious, what are you denying yourself? If you're listening to this and think, oh, well, that sounds fun. What could you be doing? Like, what is one little step, like whether it's nail polish, right? Or maybe it's, again, a sock or just whatever brings you joy. Maybe it's just time off for yourself, right? Like, what are you denying yourself that seems like, oh, it's a waste of money, but it feels like your soul is actually craving that. And if you give yourself
Yes.
more and more space, like, how could that actually give you a little more energy and vibrance that ultimately would give you that same energy for whatever you do, professionally or personally?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the questions that I always pose to people when I do these speaking gigs, one of the questions I always pose to people is, what's your 1% experiment? So what's your
Love it.
equivalent of like sparkly top coat nail polish? So what's your 1%? Because actually what happens is you get your 1% and you'll build another 1% and then another 1% and then another 1%. And then all of a sudden you'll be sat there with a mum bun and rainbow sweater. Like, it will happen.
Yeah. You know, if what it makes me think about is that a lot of times we worry so much what other people think, right? Because I know personally I was struggling, and I really became cognizant of that lately. It's like the external validation was so important to me. And so much of my drive was based on like the stress of having to do more and more and more so that I feel worthy. And I realized that all the way to combat that is really to focus on internal satisfaction of yourself. So I think
Yeah.
this like 1% experiment is this you finding your own valuation, you finding what
Yes.
brings you joy, and that really is the most solid foundation for whatever you do. Because if you really enjoy how you feel, what you bring to yourself, then you don't have to worry about everything else external. Like, yes, sure, you know, if you're working especially for other people, there's still those expectations, but you know the foundation is strong within you. And so you're not swaying every time something doesn't go according to plan, something external doesn't, like, because internally you feel good about yourself. And that is so powerful. So and let me know if you want to add anything about the 1% experiment and how it relates to that, or we can move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're totally right. I guess it's just like confirming what you just said about one of the phrases that I use. So I run a program which we've touched on, but one of the phrases that I use is, birds don't worry about what branch they land on because they've got trust in their wings. And it is so right, isn't it? And we don't do that at
Yes.
work, do we? And it really sticks with me, that one. And funnily enough, I bought my mum a little bracelet with a bird on it for that very reason, because I was
Oh,
like, birds don't worry about what branches they land on because they know they can use their wings. Like, and it's just the best phrase. So yeah, I completely agree with you.
oh, Michelle, I love it. You should be like in marketing, HR/marketing brand expert.
Oh my God, I say that all the time.
Okay, so now you're like, hey, in this reflective period, you're bringing yourself to light through these 1% experiments and finding, oh, this brings me joy. How do you then decide? He's like, maybe corporate isn't right for me, but what do you do then? Because a lot of people are like, hey, this isn't bringing me joy, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's how far it goes. What took you to the
Yeah.
next level?
Yeah, so weirdly, I was thinking I needed to do something different, and I was getting a load of interviews for more corporate roles. So, the activity was there. But each interview I was doing, I was like, oh, this just doesn't bring me joy. Like, it doesn't float my boat. It's not making me feel excited. I just sit there and be in these interviews, and I'm like, yeah, I could do that. I could, but it doesn't spark me. Like, it's just another set of the same tools, just in a different environment. So I kind of was thinking, maybe I'll take the summer off, maybe I'll just have a bit of a break. And then I ended up working with another consultant just under her brand and her umbrella for about a year, just helping her out. And what happened was, because she was a general HR consultant, I had a really great opportunity then to experiment on the kinds of stuff that I really liked and didn't like. And it was weird because I'd spent, 20 years crafting this generalist HR career. And what came out of this, experimental time was I didn't really like the HR stuff. Like, I didn't really like the grievances and the hiring and firing and all the adminning letters and writing policies and stuff. But
Yeah.
what I did love was, creating engaging content, creating training programs that lit people up. I loved delivering training, and I loved that I could be almost a bit of a disruptor in this training space where we'd all got used to this awful COVID online learning that was just dead faces, people talking into screens, not very exciting. And so, of course, then once I started applying like the Michelle magic sprinkles, it became a lot more fun, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, that's kind of how it played through. But I think it was probably a solid year of just trying things out. And I think for the first time in my entire career, I allowed myself to feel my way through something.
Mm.
Whereas when I was in corporate, it was always the next car, the next role, the next bonus, the next promotion, the next salary increase. Like, and so I was always doing this like striving thing where I was just the next thing. So I'd always forget what I'd achieved, head for the next goal. And actually, in self-employed life, it was a completely different experience because I was like, I'm just going to see. I'm just going to see what happens. Like, and the whole thing, I guess, to come back to the experiment point, maybe the whole thing was part of that. My finale to my 1% experiments was maybe I'll just see what happens. And that genuinely is what happened. I just followed the joy and
Mm-hmm.
worked out what I love to do. And then it's just come together. I mean, it sounds awful to say it like that, doesn't it? Because there's a lot of hard work that goes into what I do. But I think following the joy can be really powerful. So allowing yourself to follow the joy can just be huge.
I think that's so powerful. I think we underestimate like how much intuition and our gut feelings have to do with things. You know,
Yes.
we live so much in our heads and forget to also think like, hey, you know, our head thinks a certain way, but a lot of times it's fear motivated. It doesn't always have a clear alignment. What's our best? Like it's just like do. But who
Yeah.
are we really? How do we feel? Do you have any suggestions for other people who are like, that sounds nice, but how do I get that sense of even confidence to be able to trust in myself, to be able to trust the joy?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I guess some of it is about, I guess, giving yourself permission to feel your way through it and giving yourself permission to get it wrong sometimes. But I think the more that I've allowed myself to do that, the stronger the connection to my gut has been, which sounds a bit strange, but it works because, I'll make some of those decisions and I'll make them in a way that feels safe for me. So I just, oh, this is just 1%, this is just 1%, a small thing about a speaking gig or a small thing about a podcast guest or,
Yeah.
something is a small effort. And then you realize, oh, that felt quite good and I enjoyed that. Oh, I'll do some more of that, and it's just that kind of following through that joy. So I guess it's trusting that the right decisions to make and then enabling yourself to make them in small ways so that you can test it out. I think that's the biggest thing. So test them out, test out your intuition, however and wherever you can. If you always wanted to go self-employed, have a little think about what that could look like. If you want to start your own business, what would you sell? How would you sell it? Who would you sell it to? Just doing that thinking will start your gut tuning into the things that you love. So I think it's just paying attention, isn't it? Paying attention, noticing it, following the joy when it appears. It might be something random as well. Like mine was random,
Beautiful.
creating things in Canva. I was like, ooh, quite like this.
Beautiful.
This is good.
Beautiful. I like the analogy also like that. It's slowing down and it's taking the example like we have this, like storm of brain energy where it's like constant like how could you possibly navigate a ship through that?
Yeah,
Right? You're because there's a storm is like always do next thing, have to do this, should do this. And what you're doing, like when you try to trust your gut, is you're saying like, hey, I'm gonna create space for the tide and the sea to kind of calm down. Like when possible, even if it's like 5 minutes of the day, I'm just gonna try to say, this is the moment where I'm not doing shoulds, coulds, woulds. I'm just gonna slow down and listen, right? And so just imagine how much smoother your sail could go if you just gave yourself a moment to let the sea like die down and then navigate wherever you need to go. And
yeah,
so, you still like it's not like your brain's dead, right? You're still thinking about it, but if it gives you more comfort to think about it that way, it's just giving that noise a time to settle, so you can listen to what's really important. And what I love you mentioning is like you were like in HR for so long, and it gave you that space. Like, what do I really enjoy about this?
yeah, yeah,
And then
absolutely.
focusing
It's
on that.
Yeah, and one of the things you've just reminded me actually, one of the things I did, literally within the first week of starting out my business was I wrote a list of all the things I could do, which ranged from, HR consultancy, strategy, firing people, hiring people, pensions, training, literally a massive, massive list. And then I crossed off all the stuff that I didn't really enjoy. And interestingly, what was left was all of the training, development, coaching, support stuff, which is now where I live my life, right? But at the time, I wrote the list and ignored it because I wasn't connected properly to like my gut and following the joy because work had to be toil and it had to be pain and I had to keep doing it. But I went back to that list and it was like, I don't know, 9 months later or something, went back to the list and was like, oh my word, my brain knew where I needed to go and I just didn't listen.
Yeah. Isn't that beautiful? A beautiful, even if it takes
Mm.
time, it's a beautiful process. So you had this experience starting your entrepreneur journey. What advice would you give for other people who are maybe just starting or thinking about it? Like now that you had this reflective piece, what advice would you have for new entrepreneurs?
Yeah, and I was a really resistant entrepreneur. So I did not want to go self-employed. I did not want to start a business. I had no weird desires, which now looking back 3 years later is crazy to me. But at the time, I just didn't want to do it. And what was interesting was I felt like the reason I didn't do it is because I couldn't see anybody like me who was doing it. And so I just thought, well, this isn't for me then, because there's nobody like me doing it. And isn't it fascinating? You know, I run training now on things like inclusion, diversity, belonging, equity stuff. And part of that whole messaging is representation matters, seeing people like me matters. And so it was really interesting to think about that there wasn't anybody like me doing it. And of course, in my non-entrepreneurial head at the time, I was like, well, that means I can't do it. Where of course now I'm like, oh my word, no one's doing it. You need to do that thing. So I would be, so my advice to future entrepreneurs would be to really think about what you're bringing to the world, so what your magical gift is, and if there's anybody doing it right now, go and like stalk them, like go and lurk them, find out what they're doing, how they're doing it, like maybe even ask them for a coffee, like go and see what they're doing and how they're doing it, because it's fascinating. And genuinely, I don't think I would have done so well if I hadn't had such a great, connection of human beings around me that have really supported me. And I think that's really cool for starting out, is remembering that although you do have to do everything as an entrepreneur, you don't. you can
Right.
you can connect with people who will help you. There are so many people out there who are just the loveliest humans, who just will chat to you about everything. Like those kinds of things are so important. So I would say make the time and space to network and connect with other people, and then see who's out there like you, or who that you admire, that you can kind of go and have a little stalk of.
Oh, absolutely. This interview is happening because of exactly this, right? For one, this podcast is created by me because I wanted people who felt a little bit like lone wolves, like people who are like,
Yes.
oh, I'm thinking about this crazy thing. Nobody in my immediate surrounding has this same vision. What am I doing? And this podcast is full of exactly those kind of people who are doing this, who are pursuing and sharing their stories. So I want people to find, well, myself included, to find the sense like this is normal. Like other people are doing it. This is normal. And for better or worse, we do need that. We do need a sense like this is possible, right? Where there are other people who think like me, to make it feel like,
Yeah.
okay, yes, I'm not like just completely crazy and doing this on my own, or there are other people crazy just like me. And you know what I
Yes.
found, which really surprised me? Like again, this is still under year one for me. Entrepreneurial community is the most supportive community I've known.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
don't mean that in any negative comparison to other people, but I think because as an entrepreneur, you know the craziness it takes to go into this, how lonely it can be, how frustrating, how inner, like reflective this whole process is, the more grace you have for the people. And I
Yeah.
don't want to say like that everybody responds, because people are busy. For the most part, people are not replying to you if you reach out because they're busy, like especially
Yeah.
if you're polite and whatnot. But if people who do like are just amazingly kind, and they
Yeah.
want to help you and give you a little bit of time again. So do it respectively, have patience, maybe try again if somebody doesn't respond. But everybody who's connected with me now, like I have this, inspiring network for me for the first time in life because of me going out, sharing my wild like vision for this, even though it wasn't fully baked. And then people are like, oh yeah, I can see that because they're also
Yeah.
on this journey doing something a little crazy. So can completely relate to that advice of like build your community, find people that inspire you, reach out to them, and just having that like one or two people, it doesn't have to be a ton, can really make a
Exactly.
difference as you're starting your journey.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've got 3 or 4 friends who all started their businesses at the same time, and randomly, I
Oh,
don't even know how we all got connected, but it was on LinkedIn. And we had this
yes.
messaging group on LinkedIn, and now we're still friends. We're all still
Oh,
flourishing. Our business is still going really well. And it just makes such a difference to have a team of people around you who can pick up the phone and go, what have I just done? Like, so it's just brilliant. Yeah, it's just so good, because you need that. You need that because it's really lonely otherwise. So yeah, definitely find your people.
absolutely. I was funny. I was just watching on Instagram before this, like somebody saying like an entrepreneur's holiday party, and it's just like one guy sitting by the bar.
So true.
Well, Michelle, one thing we talked about you, and I love like the journey you're on. Can you share with me now? You found yourself, you found your business, even though you're resistant to being an entrepreneur. How have you taken this now, like, and brought this energy into HR? Like, what is like this back process where you went back to your field that was very conservative, and then you brought your full self there? What happened then?
Yeah, I don't, do you know what? I don't even know. It's the weirdest thing. So when I started my business, I had 1,400 followers on LinkedIn, and I just hit, well, I'm nearly hit 13,000 now. So in 3 years, I've gone
Woohoo!
from
Woohoo!
1,400 to nearly
Woot.
13,000.
Join
Yeah, woot
Michelle.
woot.
Just click that connect button.
Yeah, connect. Please be my friend. But it's really weird. I think the biggest impact impact I had with what I was doing was working with Harrison, funnily enough. So Harrison, who connected us, who is just the most wonderful human. Working with him to get my video confidence up really made a massive impact, because all of a sudden, all of these HR people who I'd connected with, because I was sharing great stuff, you know, I was sharing credible, good articles, interesting takes, that kind of stuff. Um, but then suddenly having that video element, even some of them, if you've seen my videos, some of them are ridiculous. They range from the sublime to the
Amazing.
ridiculous.
Amazing.
But it's me. And I think that's what's interesting. So a lot of HR people that I connect with, once they'd seen my video content, had said, oh my word, you're just like me. Like, you're hilarious, you're funny, you're quirky, you get it. Like, it just made such a difference. So I think there's a whole a whole layer of HR people who are just massively frustrated but also hilarious, who are just holding it in. And I think I just released all of those into the wild now. So now I've created all these HR people that are awesome. But yeah, I think doing the video content made a really big difference because of that visibility bit. And then bringing it back to HR, I think I was just doing like a really, I don't know, I think relatable is probably the phrase that people use for me, but really relatable from that HR profession space of, remember when this happens and how much we all hate it, or HR people, if you organise a Christmas party yet, you know, all those things that are just really relatable about the HR space. And then I think, you know, having then been able to deliver training for HR people and learning and development side, they then could see that actually it's okay to be excited about HR. It's okay to be really passionate about what you do and the value that you add. And it's okay to have fun at work, even in HR. Like, dare I say it, even in HR.
That's amazing. And anybody who wants also video tips, follow Harrison Cantel. Just a quick shout out to him again, because he's amazing, and he's also on my
He
podcast
is.
sharing some tips. But just what gave you the confidence? Were like a couple of techniques, or was it just like anything specific that stands out to you? Maybe other people who are in that like struggling phase of videos might take away from your experience.
Yeah, I would say just do it, which sounds ridiculous to say, right? But it only worked for me when Harrison basically was beating me over the head and saying, every day, do a video every day. I don't even care if you don't post it, do a video. So one of the things he says a lot is just do a video when you wake up in the morning, talk to camera and see how different you are every day. Like, and just see the bits you like, see the bits you don't like, and you'll perfect it. You'll naturally perfect it as time goes on. So that really helped for me, was just getting into the rhythm of doing video. And one of the other things that I say to people a lot is, you know, you have those days when you're really feeling yourself. Like,
Yes.
you've got, you know, your makeup looks good, you've got your nails did, you've got your hair looking all fancy, like whatever that is, or you've got a lovely top on, or you just, you know, you think you look great. And that is the day to record a load of video. Like, if you feel yourself and you feel like, oh my God, I look great today, or I love my hair, or blah, 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 just do a load of video. Just batch record a load of video talking about anything you want. You don't even have to use all of them, but you've suddenly then got 15, 20, 30 videos, and all you need to do is just to edit them and caption them when you're ready. Like, and it's just a gift. So that would be my biggest tip, is when you're feeling it, just do a record and just do a load of them. It's brilliant.
Absolutely. You know, to add to that, I noticed that I also don't force myself when I don't feel it. I think
Yes.
it's not bad to say, like, you know, you can record it every day just to get in the practice. Like, doesn't mean you have to post it, but don't push
Correct, yeah.
yourself to, like, you know, create and have this final video when you're not feeling it. That was my biggest takeaway. Is
100%.
like,
Yes.
you don't have to like you don't want to hate the process too. And oftentimes we're like, oh, I have to post every day, from 0 to 100 instantly when I'm not feeling it, when I'm running with the kids. And I just was like, hey, I that doesn't work for me. And it's not really that important. To your point, people liked your content because it's genuine, because they felt the energy, and your energy honestly
Exactly.
won't be quite there if you're just like miserable and having to do this, which is like, hey, I'm feeling good. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I also want to create space, like, let's talk about the HR things you are passionate about. I wanted to really uncover you, but there are a couple of things that really bring you to life that you want to also share.
Oh, HR things that are really passionate to me. I feel like one of the things I say all the time is HR can change the world if you let it. And I think that's something that I'm massively passionate about, is so many HR people are like squashed into this tea and tissues box that just isn't what HR are and what HR do. So HR as a profession for me can massively uptick your business, we can drive engagement, performance, deliverables, productivity, strategy, all those amazing things. But actually, if you're leaving your HR person to sit in a darkened corner and write policies all day, you're not making the best use of them. And actually, dare I say it, if you're doing that to your HR person, you probably don't need an HR person. You could probably save yourself a lot of money and just get an administrator.
Yeah.
Which is what I used to say to my senior leadership team all the time. Like, you don't need a Michelle for this. Go and get yourself an admin. Like, you just don't need it. So I think, yeah, I'm passionate about the kind of world changing capacity of HR people. It's just that kind of letting your HR person have a bit of a go and get creative, because they've got oodles of ideas. They're just squashed into this admin box that's a really boring beige place. So I think that's something that I'm massively passionate about. And then just allowing people to have fun, for God's sake.
I love it. And what's funny? I mentioned this to you, I think, in our prep call, that I was in recruiting, right, for like the majority of my career at Meta and before that. And I always considered like recruiting the fun side of HR is how I describe it.
Yes.
Because like here you are, you're like, oh, I got an offer for you and you and you and want to hire. And yes, there are difficult parts, but I get it. Like, there are parts that could be very challenging, and I always feel like, oh, you get to do the fun part of HR because I know there are difficulties, But to your point, I also felt like it's very valuable. Again, people you might think recruiting is not like the most exciting place, but again, you're bringing talent in, so everything that people are doing in the company is being touched by HR and what you're bringing there, and now like. Here you are, leading these trainings, bringing your full energy. But I'm curious, like, what are some of the big challenges that we're still facing after, the COVID reality has settled that maybe you want to touch upon? Because I think we're not going to go back, right? People are more dispersed, right? There's more remote work happening, and I'm very grateful for that. Personally, I was remote for like all of COVID with my little ones. But what are some new changing realities that HR is facing because of these changes?
Yeah, I think a lot of HR people now are seeing, the pace of COVID hasn't changed, even though the COVID chaos has gone. And it's funny, it comes up in every program that I do where we talk about, well-being, pace, change management stuff, is that every single HR person I've worked with said, in COVID, the pace went from here to here, and it hasn't stopped. We've just carried on this massive trajectory of COVID chaos, which is great for productivity, right? Like, awesome. But the reality is, for your HR team, they're doing still like double the work, if not more, in that pace again. And it just doesn't work with human beings, right? We are human beings, not human doings. So I think it's that pacey bit has been massive for HR people, particularly that I'm seeing in my programs. And then we've got this awesome AI explosion that has happened, which I just love. There's so much in there, isn't there, that's really exciting. But equally, I think it's a challenge. I think a lot of HR people are worrying about AI taking our jobs, whereas the reality is AI can take the awful bits of your jobs and do it for you fine, and then you can do the good bits that you want to be doing. So I think that's going to be an interesting one to kind of watch. It's not quite burning people yet, I don't think, but there's that kind of burgeoning feeling about AI coming in, and it's gonna break us all. But I'm quite excited to see what happens with AI. And then you're right around the remote nature of work. I think I've seen twofold on this one. So I've seen the kind of challenge of engaging remote workers, delivering our culture through dispersed teams. But equally, I've now seen organisations starting, and over in the UK we call it like pinging back, but starting to ping back their employees back into the offices. And that's just so disappointing and frustrating when we've had so many years now of working in this remote, super connected way, that it's a real disappointment. If we ping back, it'll be really, really disappointing, because we'll just miss so many opportunities, and we'll miss, so much in terms of that work-life balance, where actually people can pick up their kids from school and it's nice and it's okay, or people can have a restful day where they're working at home but they're not putting on all that face, they're not putting on all the corporate clothing, they're not using their time for commuting. So I think that's going to be something that's coming more and more and more now, is where organizations are pinging back. And I think for HR people, what's happening is either they're having to deliver that message, which is horrible, or they're battling that message and desperately trying to stop it, and trying to work with senior leaders to convince them to stay in this hybrid space. So yeah, it's an interesting space, I think, at the moment.
Yeah. I feel like it's going to be like, it's like a backlash, right? It's like you have the tidal wave and then now you're kind of dealing with the aftermath. And I hope there's a balance, because even as an entrepreneur, I don't think this would be possible if COVID didn't happen. And I don't want to say like
Yes.
glorify that, but I think that normalization of these conversations virtually help things, even like podcasts and entrepreneurs be like, hey, if I'm not present, I can still do business. I can still
Yes.
be present virtually, and that's deemed just as valid, because I think we've normalized this virtual environment and having interactions this way. And I was talking to entrepreneurs before who, like, before COVID, as somebody's working from Spain, entrepreneur in the US, he's like, I couldn't do this, right? Because you had
Mm,
to be in person, but now it's become more normal to be doing business virtually, and people don't deem that to be different. So I'm hoping, even, like, entrepreneur or not, that there's going to be some balance. Even if people right now, there's like this thing, oh, now we have to go back, everything is normal, like there'll be an adjustment, like, oh, what were the trade-offs happening over
yeah.
here? And lastly, I want to give you space to also talk about 2024, what you're excited about. But maybe to wrap up, like, how should people reach out and work with their HR people? Like, as a quick tip for everybody listening, who maybe is like, HR, I don't really work with them unless something really hits the fan. Any tip for working with your HR person, your lovely HR person?
That is such a good question, because nobody does it, do they? I would say, like, the first thing, this is like questions to ask your HR person. The first thing I would say is, oh my word, ask them how they are. Like, because no
Mm,
one asks HR how they are, like, genuinely asks how
yeah.
they are. And I was talking to a number of HR people recently, and I was saying, like, nobody, in no other job do you have things that range from employee deaths and insurance claims to like delivering business strategy and turnover. Like, it nowhere has that massive scope in role than other than
Yeah.
HR. And nowhere gives you like that level of training. Like, no one prepares you for this stuff. So I would say genuinely ask your HR person how they're doing, and mean it, and probably maybe even ask twice. Like, that was the one thing that my best CEO ever got out of me, was he would always ask twice. So the first time I'd be like, yeah, I'm fine, thanks. And the second time he'd ask again almost straight after, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm not okay, let's talk.
Oh,
So ask how they are and ask twice. And then I would say just talk with them about, hey, I could really use your help, or I've had
hmm,
this idea. What do you think? I'd love to do this. Get them engaged in what you're doing, because that's where we shine, right? We're probably the most creative function you could ever have in an organization, but we're underutilized. So, if you've
yeah.
got an idea, go in early and use your HR person's brain, because they're big
Oh,
and they've got lots of information in them.
I love that. I love all those points. And like, even for just general humans, ask how they are, have curiosity,
Yes.
and like utilize the strengths of people who maybe you haven't thought about before, but have brilliant minds and have that capacity for thinking largely. Okay, beautiful advice. I'm glad we got that in there, because it's so important. And I know we've talked about you, but I want to also give wisdom for everybody working with HR individuals. Okay, Michelle, here we are, as we're recording this, we're wrapping up 2023. This will come out
Hmm.
right at the beginning of 2024. So congrats to you if you're listening. It's happy 2024. But Michelle,
Woohoo!
what are some thoughts for you? Like, what, as you're reflecting on this year, what are some big wins and takeaways, and what are you excited for in 2024?
Ooh, big win. We had so I run an HR community called the HR Geek Squad, and we had this question in our little WhatsApp group that we have, which is, what are you most proud of this year? And I really struggled initially, and I could only think of things in the last like month or two. And then as I was reflecting more, I was like, oh my word, I won an award this year. That's amazing. Like, that's pinnacle career moment.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I'm really proud that I won the Inspirational Indie Award, so the most inspirational HR independent. That was
Well,
very
that's
cool.
amazing. Congratulations.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then I also think I'm just proud of like allowing myself to feel through the business and to find
Mm,
my joy. Like, I am genuinely the most happy I think I've ever been in a job ever. So
mm,
that's a massive, huge thing to be proud of, right?
mm.
Um, and then I think I'm really proud of like my brand. If you've seen it on LinkedIn, it's full of
Oh yeah.
rainbows
Oh
and
yeah. I
like
have totally seen
happiness.
it. It's hard to miss. It's hard to miss.
Which is another deliberate act on my part. Like, be a peacock in a flock of pigeons. So I deliberately like have loved that my brand is really kind of settled and connected. And then I think for next year, I'm just really excited for more of the same. Like,
Mm,
to see what's coming. I'm genuinely excited to see what comes next. Like, I've realized that one of my superpowers is connection. So this year I'm thinking about, I always have a Christmas think, by the way. So this is my Christmas think time. So my Christmas think time is about how can I like use that superpower and deliver even more with it. So I'm thinking about a few things where maybe it's about, connecting senior leaders or connecting HR people, but that's my burgeoning thought that I'm quite excited about, is where my connection superpower will take me.
I love that. Well, if you need some connections in the US, I would be happy to connect with all my wonderful HR people over here. One
Yes.
thing you mentioned the HR Geek Squad, but also we
Mm.
haven't touched about your Find Your Awesome program. So do you want to maybe share about those two things? Who is it for? Who can benefit from it? Because I don't want you to leave without mentioning those.
Thank you. Yeah, so the HR Geek Squad is my HR community. I've currently capped it at 100 geeks, because we wanted to keep the like community feels. But oh my word, it's so fun. So we get together once a month on Zoom. We do like learning together on a particular topic. So we've got speakers booked up until October next year.
Wow.
And we have what I call like a feral WhatsApp group. So it's basically, imagine if you locked all of your HR people in a room, got them really drunk and threw in some random jokes. That is my WhatsApp group, which is just gold. It is gold. So that has been really good. I don't, weirdly, I don't charge very much for it. I probably should charge more, but I don't. So it's only £99 for the year. So it's just a really kind of
What?
reasonable, yeah, because I just do it for the joy, and that's probably my
Yeah.
problem. But I do it with the joy because I just love it so much. So that's the geeks. And then the Find Your Awesome program is my HR business partner program. So it's 10 weeks, an hour a week over Zoom every week. But I called it Find Your Awesome because I, I wanted people to realize that they were always awesome. I just helped them uncover it. So there was a really deliberate choice in my naming of the program. And what's lovely is so many people resonate with it. Like so many of the graduates come out and they say, you were right. I've totally found my awesome. And I had a post this week from a delegate, and their boss commented on it and said, "Oh, you've definitely found your awesome. We can all see it." And I was like, "Oh my heart."
Aw.
So, so lovely. But what's interesting with it is I set it up to be an HR business partner program, but I'm getting more and more requests from leaders and organizations to just deliver it as a development program. And I hadn't
Love it.
appreciated when I made it that it's just valid as a development program as well. So yeah, that might be another 2024 thing to look out for. But yeah, so it covers cool things like imposter syndrome, being commercial, personal brand, which is obviously my favorite, question skills, all that kind of stuff. There's lots of good topics in there that aren't just necessarily for HR people. So yeah,
Uh,
that's me.
I'm so excited for you. Again, like it's lovely to see where this journey takes you to, right? You start
Yeah.
with one idea, it blossoms, and then things kind of grow even in ways you don't expect. But you're
Mm.
focused, like you're like, oh, maybe I'm selling myself. You're like, you're not, right? You're growing your brand. People find value, and I just fully trust that as long as your intention is to help people, right, and you bring your full self to, like, things will go as they should. You'll find more value, more opportunities, and all that will come into place. Michelle, anything else you want to add? You've been so generous of your time, sharing your whole story, being so transparent, and like bringing this beautiful energy to this process. Did we miss anything before we wrap up with final three rapid questions?
No, I don't think so. I've loved it. Thank you so much. It's been a joy. It's been an absolute joy, and the time has flown. So thank you so much.
I feel exactly the same way. Time has flown by, but here at Right of Track, we wrap up with three rapid fire questions. So whenever you're ready, let me know and I'll shoot away.
Okay, go.
Okay, so let's see. A non-HR book that shaped your professional philosophy.
Oh, well, I think the Poisonwood Bible is one because it's about a family of missionaries who live in the Congo, but it's all around each personality and what they do and how they kind of come to their realizations about their family life. So it's just a really great one for me to think about, how people can really connect. So definitely give that a go.
Oh, I love that. Okay, a song that gets you in the zone for a big challenge.
Always Lizzo, anything by Lizzo, like literally anything. I am the biggest fan. In my Spotify Wrapped, I'm in the top 0.05% of Lizzo listeners. So anything Lizzo is the answer to that one.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love you even more for saying that. Okay, last but not least, in the positive sense, going off track is.
Ooh. Is being courageous enough to be brave and say what you mean.
Beautiful, beautiful, concise, beautiful, to the point. Michelle, you're a delight. And to all of our listeners, thank you so much for investing your time in being here. I hope you came here and hopefully you got something about HR, but most importantly, I hope you found something about yourself. You found some inspiration to follow your awesomeness, embrace your journey, and bring that 1% kind of strategy to mind. Like, what is the 1% of you doing something for yourself? And just have this sense of like, where could that take you in getting inspiration from Michelle's journey? So thank you so much for coming off track with us. And as always, let's take over the world together. Right off track. Michelle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I've loved it. Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. Take care.
Bye.